Welcome to today's pick a card, which will be why haven't you heard from them? We have two groups for you to choose from with the Emperor and the Chariot. I have a couple crystals that are paired with each card. So for the Emperor, we have a Pistachio Calcite. And for the Chariot, we have the Caribbean Calcite. It's like a very pale Caribbean Calcite, but yeah, so you can take a moment to choose whichever pile you feel the most drawn to. Timestamps are in the description box to jump ahead. Just remember that these readings are general readings only, so they are not always as accurate as a personal reading, and hopefully they serve you well. We'll see you in group one. Hey, welcome group one. If you chose the Emperor card and the Pistachio Calcite, then this will be your reading on why you haven't heard from them or why this person's like not in contact. I feel like this person, there's some element or underlying thing here of like a type of competition or something like that. I feel like I regularly pick up on this energy, and it's I can't tell who's in competition with who here. So we do have Mars and Aries, Virgo, earth signs and water signs, but I feel like it's mostly like Mars and Virgo and maybe Cancer. Okay, regardless of the zodiac energies that are coming through, seems this person's taking like a really strong stance. Like there might be to some degree some sort of like taking charge of their own lives or stepping into power or holding a boundary, like holding a line, or deciding their life moving forward. Like there's like a forging their life. And I don't know, for some of them, I feel like they're just so focused on that like anything outside of, you know, their control, or I don't know what it is. I'm getting a few like kind of mixed energies through, so we'll just do it like one by one as usual, and we'll kind of uncover it as we go. But I don't know, I also feel like this person would be taking like a very strong stance, whatever that's regarding. I'm not really sure, but I feel like they're being very discerning, they're being very strong in their stance. There's like an element of being protective here. I think they're just being the authority in their own life. Like they're not letting other people sway them. Maybe they did for a while, or maybe the way that you've known them, they did like, you know, be like that at times, and now they're deciding what their life is going to be like, and they're very, very firm in it, very, yeah, almost like a staunch type of energy, but not being swayed, not being easily influenced. I feel like at this stage, they're probably just been putting in a lot of work to get to where they are, trying to take whatever practical steps that they can to help themselves. And they weren't seeing like a lot of yield, and I think they've discovered the power of fire. Like they've discovered the power of, I don't know, like their own power. They've discovered their own power, their own fire within themselves. And I think it's something they were probably quite unfamiliar with before. So now it's like being put into practice full swing. But I think they be grounded. They're like, it's like they're very grounded, very steady, I think they have like, they're very deeply rooted into whatever it is that they do and the earthly parts of themselves. Which is funny because I wouldn't normally get this as like an energy that could easily be swayed or influenced, but maybe they have those strong foundations, and within those strong foundations there was still like a lot of potential for influence or something like that. But I don't know, this is seeming very general or very open to interpretation with like some of what's coming through. For some of them, it's like whatever they were doing, they didn't generally have like a good, they weren't like achieving a lot, or they weren't being recognized for something, or maybe what they were doing wasn't necessarily like yielding the best results, or it was like a long-term investment, but it ended up like it wasn't serving them. So they've embraced that willpower and that determination. I feel like somewhere along the way, upon all of that hard work, or you know, going through the practical steps and the notions of everything, they've kind of discovered a stronger sense of self, and they are taking charge of their life. And for some of them, it puts them in a position where it does make them more grounded, like much more grounded than they were in the past. And so with that new like fortified sense of self, they're stepping towards a new beginning. Yeah, I feel like that's probably closer to what it is. It's like that stronger sense of self being fortified, and they'll be like that going after what they want, but just that, I don't know, I feel like this person will stand up for themselves where they didn't before. Yeah. And they're valuing their own opinions more than what they had before as well. So it's just the value of self has dramatically increased. It's like through the monotonous, practical, step-by-step Groundhog Day, doing the same thing day in, day out, they've realized there's not going to be a change, or they've had like an epiphany moment, or they've like realized something about themselves. There's definitely a level here where they've gotten to know themselves more. And I think for like, I don't know how it's necessarily come about. It doesn't really feel like shadow. It feels like spontaneous shadow work. It feels like maybe this person was just going about their life, and they were just kind of thinking in their random day to day, because I do feel like this person was more present maybe than what people would give them credit for or notice about this person, and they like accidentally stumble upon the fact that they're just kind of working for someone else, or they're doing the things that other people do. They're not really doing things for themselves, and they realize at that point that they didn't know themselves very well, so they needed to discover themselves. And I think through that process they took that time being mindful, and it might actually look like this person really didn't get anything back from that time, but I think what you would see is that, like, you know, if we were, whatever it was they were doing, they might not have had the same type of remuneration. So if this person was skill building or putting a lot into it, you know, particular career or craft or something, they might not have actually been paid money, or they might not have actually gained recognition for their services or gotten busy, whatever it is that they do. But through the process, they've had that level of like self-discovery, and it's actually kind of priceless. So this person might not have made very much money from it, but their self-discovery lands them in a position where like their abundance and their wealth potential is like through the roof, and they're so much more like rooted in and grounded in who they are as a person. They're so much more steady. There's so much more like that fortified sense of self. It's literally priceless. There's nothing here that could ever set them back again, no matter what they face in their lives. Yeah. I am kind of getting a little message here, and it is something that I notice comes through quite regularly, is that if this is sounding like yourself, you may have picked a pile where, you know, I'm not sure if you had another person in mind or if you just kind of picked a pile and thought you would sit back to listen and see who comes through out of curiosity, but you may have accidentally stumbled upon your own energy here. So you might actually be hearing like a kind of cross-watching reading about yourself if you have recently stepped away or withdrawn from people or ended relationships or moved on without them or something like that. Maybe you've just been putting firmer boundaries in. I don't really know. Anyway, so from that point forward, it's like you were able to hold more than what you could in the past because of that like stronger sense of self. It was like there was more room for like type of fluidity. There was more room for holding space. There was more room for capacity. There was more room for like a sense of calm, because it was like you've got your back. But yeah, I go back to talking as if it's about a person who's who has stopped and, you know, lost contact with. So anyway, at that point, it's like they've had a new beginning, and the capacity, their emotional availability and their capacity is so much greater. I think they've gone through a strong development stage as well. And it's kind of why I'm getting the Emperor. It's like we have King of Pentacles and King of Cups here. We don't have the other King cards here, but it also, like, the Emperor is made up of all four kings. It's like a well-rounded or balanced, like a person who's able to embody all the elements. So maybe they already had their King of Swords or their King of Wands, you know, behind them. Yeah. Okay. So with that capacity and that depth and that growth, it's like because they've learned how to protect themselves, there's much greater capacity for like that, for them to have fluidity that they haven't had before. It brings a different type of peace on their journey. And I think they're learning a lot more about themselves, and they're seeing how certain things that have played out in the past have really affected their life. So they look back, there's an element of looking back at the past and seeing how it's affected their relationships. And I think they still have those moments where they look back and see how they don't want to be put in that position again. I think this group may have had like challenges with other people's authority overriding their own, or other people's influence having greater sway than their own. There was like a loss of autonomy or sovereignty here or something, and this person's worked very, very hard to get to where they have, and they've finally like discovered like the secret key for themselves to be able to embody that. Overall, it seems like this person has discovered their weak points and their strong points and how to best move forward. And I think at different times they'll look back and they might have that potential to fall back into the old patterns, but they're a lot stronger in themselves now, in their foundations, that they won't let it happen again. Yeah. I think this person probably has a really great depth to them, but it's not surface level. Like, it's something that would be quite well protected, that not everyone would have access to or wouldn't be able to see. Okay, just gonna see if we can get another card. gonna see. It's definitely a cycle closed out, but there's also like a new in touch awareness. It's like the growth that pays back tenfold. It's like the great maturing that unlocks the world. And the closing out of the old cycle, the beginning of a new one. I think there's like a realization of the vast depths of the universe with how there's like a sense of this person achieving, I don't know if I want to say it's enlightenment necessarily. I don't know if I could say this person might have a sense of like being a spiritual person, but they might not. I feel like they're more grounded in how they operate throughout the world, but they might have cleared their energetic body or something like that without realizing. It's like this person has operated throughout the physical world in such a way that they've almost done the spiritual work without realizing it. They're not necessarily consciously aware of the blockages that they've cleared because they've just been very present and they've applied themselves and they've lived their truth. They've lived in alignment. And I think that you would see the contrast in like how hard they've worked. They've probably overdone it a little bit with how hard they've worked. But I also feel like they've set a very clear path for how you can do it. And there's something here to this person's just determination that I don't think they receive enough credit for. It won't be for everyone, it'll only be for a very small, like, few people in the group. But I think for some of the people in this group, their efforts are not recognized by other people. Like, it looks like it's pretty easy or pretty general or pretty common experiences that other people go through. And I think this type of, like, scenario is, but it's like it's being highlighted that there's something here that's not recognized by others. Like, this person's efforts are not recognized. People can't see it. It's like because it didn't happen in front of people, or it did but it was so gradual, or I don't know, there was something here where it's like people are undermining this person's efforts. But I don't think they'll be undermined anymore. And I do have to say that I think this person could have a tendency to kind of, I don't know if I would say they do it all the time, but they could have a tendency to ruminate or get caught up in their mind about things. But I think all the steps that they've taken has been like very healthy, appropriate, wholesome steps to kind of quieten the mind. They're very realistic. So even if they have like negative thoughts, they actually are very self-aware that it is a negative thought and that it's not helpful, and they take those practical steps to kind of move forward with life. I think they're really grounded in how they do things. So yeah, but this person's harnessing their personal power. So for whatever reason, if you're not hearing from this person, I can't tell if it's because they're busy or if it's because part of their personal power being reclaimed has something to do with they don't feel like they had a lot of power. Maybe not power is the right word, but they may not have felt like they had a lot of freedom or sovereignty in the connection or something like that. Or something about it may not have made them feel safe. I'll see if I can pull more cards to see what actually, there could have been like a level of restriction, and there could have been a level of something about the connection, even if it wasn't very extreme. There could have been like a level of something that to them was quite toxic, even if it actually, like, you might not have, some of you may have done something that hurt this person, whether you realize it or not, but some of you may not have done anything to hurt this person, and it's the, you know, it could have been some of those thoughts that they were having, or something about the relationship that there could be like a recognition of the patterns that played out in their earlier life, and it hits too close to home, and so they know that they need to remain separate to remain in their power. So I don't know, I do feel like this person is trying to better their life, and they are trying to move forward in a way that's meaningful, protective, and they're taking charge of their life. They're not giving their power to anybody else. For some of you, you may not have hurt them at all, but you might have just had a personality that, I don't know, maybe this person's like more submissive or something, or they give their power away too easily without like realizing it at the time, and then later on they realize that a lot of the relationship is kind of one-sided or something, because they've just agreed to everything, and they're realizing that, you know, through this fortification of the stronger sense of self, that they actually feel differently to how they have been in the past. So yeah, or there's like a difference in values. Yeah, anyway. Okay, that's everything that I actually have for you today, Group 1. Hopefully this is helpful or insightful to you in some way. I hope everybody is taking care of themselves. And if you felt drawn to Group 2, definitely feel free to check that one out as well. It'll be interesting to see if we have any overlapping messages there. But of course, that's not for everyone. So take care. I'll see you all in another video. Welcome, Group 2, to today's reading. If you chose the Chariot and the Caribbean Calcite, then this will be your group or your messages for why you haven't heard from this person, or why they've stopped contact, something like that. I think this person's very set on moving forward in their life. For some of them, they may feel like they're going into a really turbulent time where they're having to really toughen up their exterior, and they know that people will probably, like, if people are getting in the way, they may sort of accidentally wind up collateral. So they're putting that, by way of moving forward, they are not accepting, I don't know, it's like they don't want to hurt people, but they're, for some of them, I get like they're on a warpath, like they're very strongly, they have some sort of like, and I don't know what it is. They have something that they are trying to achieve, and people are going to wind up as collateral if they don't like get out of the way. But this person's not going to change what they're doing because it's part of their path or what they need to do at this time. There's something like that. Or keep in mind for these groups that sometimes the energies could be flipped. So like for some of you, it could actually be you that needs to move away from this person. And you're kind of getting it as like a cross-watcher type reading, like you're cross-watching. Yeah. I'm getting something here that this person has connection to some type of like ancient knowledge or wisdom. And so this person could be fighting battles that you know nothing about, or that they don't, you know, it might not be obvious, like out in the open or obvious. They might just like look like they're on a warpath for no reason, but they're really undergoing some type of like heavy, I don't know if it's healing. I don't want to really say it's even transformation, but I think they're discovering a lot. and they're pushing themselves through something just to keep moving for the sake of moving forward. Like, I don't know if they really are getting the opportunity to do more than that. And so I would say that for this person, the Caribbean Calcite could be extremely helpful or soothing or calming for them. And that if you're cross-watching and it's your own energy coming through that's recently moved away from someone, or, you know, or why you're not in contact, where it doesn't really matter who's pulled away from who, but maybe working with Caribbean Calcite could be really helpful for you. It's such a underrated stone. I feel like most people gravitate towards it because of how it looks. Maybe not particularly like the example of my Caribbean Calcite, but it is like a pretty crystal. So there's also something here about not seeing something for what it is, or I don't know, it's like maybe something's happened for the wrong reasons. Like maybe someone's not being given credit, or someone's not being acknowledged, or someone's not looking past what's on the surface. Like maybe something in the connection was only surface deep, and I don't know, for some of you, like this person I think wanted you to go to war with them. And I'm not sure if that means like they wanted you to engage in some type of conflict with them so that, you know, you could have the conflict and overcome it and move forward, or like to kind of nut something out. Or if it's a case that they wanted you to go to war with them, as in they wanted you by their side in whatever their endeavor was, whatever the sort of siege or the fight was ahead. They wanted you by their side, and then when you weren't by their side, I think it kind of set them off to just like move forward, whether it was like painful or not. Yeah, I think there's very much an energy of being on a warpath, even if they're not actually at war with anyone here. But then I'm not saying that people aren't at war with things. There was definitely messages where it almost seemed to me like this person having this connection with this ancient wisdom and knowledge, like they might be learning about past lives or something, and they're kind of at war with themselves between some of the nuances and dualities that have played out between their past lives. And I think there's a lot here that this person is struggling to get around, or they're struggling to embody both at once. Or maybe when they embody both at once, it kind of looks really bizarre. But I don't really feel like they give off that energy. I don't know. Okay, so I do feel like there was some sort of divine intervention or redirection here. And it's kind of like that reclaiming the power. But I also, which is funny because we did get that in group 1 as well. But I am also seeing a card that I have in another deck that it's kind of like people having an arm wrestling competition, and it actually has the word like domination on it, but it's, I think it was two of pentacles, or two of wands. No, I'm gonna find it. It could have been even swords. Is it swords? I know it was kind of like the path of least resistance, but there's something about the card that I'm not accessing that is really important, and I feel like the visual component is going to be really important as well. I think it's like, I don't know if it's 2 of pentacles, because it's sort of like the struggle and the path of least resistance, and a person wanting to like dominate, and then another person to be able to be in that relationship. They basically don't have their own sense of like agency or something. Like if they want to be in that relationship, they can't. It's not the Pentacles. It must be Two of Wands. Why? But that's kind of like seeing what else. I don't know. Maybe I've got the card completely wrong. I'll just see if I can find it. But where is it? Is it Two of Cups? Judgment. Domination. It is fire. It's Two of Wands. So it's kind of like maybe they're like, there's that sense of like, what path do I take? Do I kind of engage with this relationship that's, there's always going to be a power struggle here? Or do I need to step away to find the path of least resistance? And like I said, keep in mind that this reading, that very much could be like a sense of, I feel like both groups today, there are going to be people here on either side of the storyline, you know, whether they are watching for someone else or they are the person's energy that's coming up. So I think that's what it is. It's like a personal power struggle that's not, you know, one person doesn't want to enter into the struggle and the other person kind of needs to have that struggle to assert their own dominance or something like that. And we are getting like fire signs, particularly like Leo and Aries, but we also have Cancer here as well, if that means anything to anybody, and Jupiter. Yeah, but it's kind of like, I feel like somebody here may have also had like a bit of a glow up or a grow up process where they've had like a lot of expansion. I do feel for some people they may have like risen up through the ashes and kind of had a moment of like phoenix transformation where they've been like reborn again and they've come back with such a great strength where they shouldn't have actually been able to come up out of something. And if they were, they shouldn't have been able to do it with such like strength that they've demonstrated. It's like a, yeah, it shouldn't have been possible. I'm getting something like that. And so that person is like discovering their own sense of power and they're starting to experience a type of expansion or growth in their life that they haven't actually had access to before. And so of course with that, it can be, I don't know if I want to say there's like a level of someone misconstruing something here. Like maybe they think this person's on a power trip, but they're not really. They're actually just discovering their strong sense of self. And it's totally unrelated and kind of has nothing to do with it. But I also have, so this, it seems to be like there are definitely two people here. And that's one side of the timeline, or not the timeline, one side, one person's perspective. They've had that strong growth and glow up or grow up type of energy. And there's like that discovering their own personal power. And then on the other side of it, we have a person here who's actually already very powerful and they are very established in their power or their personal power, their sense of power, who they are, their confidence. Everything about them almost exudes power. And they're almost so much more worried about what this other person is doing or experiencing or that they're coming up. And it's like with, I'm getting a sense of this other person experiencing the Phoenix moment of like this strong transformation. It's like they're rising. And as they rise more, it's like they're starting to meet this other person on their level, like this King of Wands character on their level. And the King of Wands doesn't like anybody else being on their level. Or maybe they're just unsure of it, but they are feeling threatened, or there's kind of something, there's something about it where they just want to be the one in charge or with the power or something like that. It's kind of, but I don't feel like the King of Wands is all bad either. I just feel like they're just not used to having to share the podium with anyone else. So when someone else kind of comes up, they're like, who is this person? Where'd they come from? How'd they do it? I've been on my own path here, and then now someone else is like trying to step up to the plate, and they're seeing it more as like a power move than what it is. So maybe that's what it is. Maybe King of Wands is, you know, like a little bit naturally competitive, but not necessarily out to compete with people, but then misunderstanding the Phoenix energy as a person who wants to compete when they don't at all. They're just experiencing their own natural growth and transformation here. And so the King of Wands is actually really getting stuck in their head. They're misunderstanding it. There's a level of like, I don't know, maybe naivety or being caught up in old situations. Like maybe the King of Wands has actually experienced it before, where they gave someone the benefit of the doubt that they were just coming up through their own growth, and then the person actually did try to kind of like usurp them or something. I wonder if this King of Wands has some type of like leadership position or hierarchical position. Yeah, but they're really like, it's like all the focus on the power has kept them kind of stuck in their head, or it stopped them seeing something. It's like they no longer have that sense of understanding from the ground up. It's like they've been up at the top for so long that they only see their perspective from the throne, not from the ground. So no wonder why it kind of looks a bit threatening to them, or like someone's trying to challenge them, when this other person's not trying to challenge them at all. They're just experiencing their Phoenix moment. Yeah. So this is kind of like an unnecessary type of domination here, but for others there's definitely an element of wanting to keep people in their place, off the podium. I'm the only person that sits here, and I will be on a warpath if you try to challenge that. Or even if I actually wonder here if there's something about like a narrative. So like maybe these people haven't ever really been in competition, but they have opposing views in life, or they have opposing, I don't know, what is it, like philosophies or something. And so because there's this opposing philosophy, then it's like kind of enters them into like a challenging territory where, you know, someone's trying to say like, my philosophy is correct. I don't know. This just seems like kind of petty. Like I'm not really interested in it. I just want to see if we need to pull more cards, or if there's something else from this message, because I'm kind of done reading the energy here. I feel like we get the picture. Like, and I want to say, like, if you're in this King of Wands energy, like, there's still compassion too. Like, you know, we're all on different parts of the journey at different times, and you know, what one person's journey looks like is totally different to another person's. But I would say maybe, like, not to be so quick to oppose people for the sake of opposition. Something like that. Or to see that, like, you know, there's fire on both sides here. One person's only just beginning in their fire, and you're, like, really well versed in your fire. Like, it doesn't really need to be, like, a type of you know, challenge here. Like, you guys could probably work together really well. I think if anything, this person would probably like naturally look up to you, whether they're on your level or not. I think that they see the great strengths that you have, and I think that you're like naturally an inspiring person. You're a person who naturally kind of has people in a state of awe. But just because they're in a state of awe doesn't mean that they are going to try to take from you, if that makes sense. So, but whatever it is, you know, a spirit's still trying to acknowledge that maybe people have done this to you before. And so it's not super unrealistic for you to have that lens, just through the fact that it's been part of your reality or something that people have tried with you. But I'm kind of getting that, can't remember what it's called. It's like when you've had that same repeated experience so many times and it becomes like a very real possibility. It's that thing of not everyone is like that, but to you, maybe it's happened 8 out of 10 times. So it really is. So you're very wary, or you've just learned to shut that down so it doesn't continue to happen to you. But this person's like one of the 2 out of 10 that aren't going to do it to you. And it's kind of like, you know, that it's like hard, because it may have actually been kind of, I don't know if it's been traumatic for you or not, or if it's just the reality of the situation, is that it's cost you something. And every time it's cost you something, it's left you in a position where you don't want to have that, you know, you don't want things to keep costing you anymore. So whatever that looks like, I do feel like this person isn't matching up with what you've had that previous experience with, and that there's something here that I think you might be missing about their stance or their general philosophies. There's like a mismatch in recognition or understanding here. But if you, I don't know, like there's definitely a lot of ancient wisdom and understandings here. So I actually wonder if some of this stuff predates this life, and there is like a lot of past life things that have played out, and maybe the pair of you have been in oppositional energy throughout like a lot of lives, or there was maybe one particular past life as you've been like someone here has been discovering these past lives. And even if it wasn't a continual pattern that played out across many past lives, maybe it was just one, but in that one particular life there's something that you just can't move past. And so it's like that moving forward in this life is, I don't know, this is very, like, this is kind of confusing, but also because I'm only getting so much of the information here, so I don't know what the past life was, and I don't know, you know, what side of it who was on and all of that. There's a lot here that seems to be even playing fields, and then like a mistaking people's positions for something different to what they are, or something other than what they really are. So, or their intentions and motives. There's a lot of intention and motives here, like that's been mistaken. Yeah. Okay, group 2, that's everything that I actually have for you. So I hope that this made sense to you and was helpful in some way. Please, if you specifically watch group 2 and it did make sense, please let me know in the comments, because it was even hard for me to kind of keep up with like who was on what side. So if it did make sense, I'd love to know. And yeah, I don't know, hopefully it was helpful. I'll see you all in another reading. Thanks.